The 1741 New York slave conspiracy trials led to the execution of 30 slaves and 4 whites. The star witness in these trials was a teenage girl named Mary Burton. To understand how such a young girl played such an important role in these events, we must first understand the atmosphere of 18th century New York. New York was a thriving city that had the largest black community north of the Chesapeake Bay. Slaves worked and lived alongside whites, and New York officials worried about whether they had a lack of control over the city's slaves. Slave revolts in New York and other colonies had occurred, and New York City officials had created laws that limited the lives of slaves. It was in this atmosphere of fear that young Mary Burton lived. At this time, Mary was a 16-year-old indentured servant for the Houston family. She lived and worked with them at their tavern and led a simple, quiet life. This quiet life, however, ended on February 28, 1741, with a robbery. The Houston Tavern was frequented by the robbers, and the Houstons were accused of buying stolen goods. Officials turned to young Mary to see what she may have seen or overheard. Mary was reluctant to speak, but was given little choice. She could tell what she knew or go to jail. Reward money and freedom from her indenture may have also enticed her. She chose to speak, and her testimony led to the arrest of both her master and his wife. Then the fires began. On March 18th, Fort George burned to the ground, and between March 25th and April 6th, 9 more fires occurred. Mary Burton tied the Houstons to the fires, and her testimony helped to create the notion of an elaborate biracial plot to burn the city. Without Mary, there would have been no trials, and as she repeatedly embellished her story, more arrests were made. The arrests and trials did not end until Mary began to accuse prominent white residents of also being involved in the plot. Was Mary telling the truth? Those that questioned her honesty pointed to inconsistencies in her testimony and believed the promise of freedom and money affected her. A Supreme Court judge at the trial, Daniel Horsemenden, defended Mary. He said that only someone of the most wicked of morals would bring so many innocents to a miserable and untimely end. Questions of her honesty still occur today, and we cannot say for sure if she was telling the truth or what her exact motivations were. What can be said for sure is that this young woman's testimony had drastic repercussions. 17 slaves and 4 whites were hung, and 13 slaves were burned at the stake. 72 more slaves were shipped to the Caribbean to be resold, and 7 whites were deported. By the end of the trials, Mary's master and mistress were executed, she was free of her indenture, and had acquired a tidy sum of money to begin a new and independent life. Whether a true conspiracy or not, the 1741 New York conspiracy trials were the result of fear, coupled with the testimony of a young indentured servant, Mary Burton.